The world is on fire, but at least we have each other. Hello, welcome back to Sapling Tarot. My name is Imogen, and today we're back with another episode of The Cards We're Dealt, my series on tarot and neurodivergence. This time with AB from AB's Witch Journal. I hope you enjoy. So would you like to introduce yourself?
So my name is Aníbal. I typically, since I arrived to USA and I started being called AB, which is okay. It was a friend, a coworker that says, well, I cannot pronounce your name. Well, how can I call you? And I was like, feel free to do so. And they picked the name AB, and now I'm AB, which is okay. It doesn't, I don't mind it. And a few years ago, I began my channel, AB Witch Journal, and it was with the intention of, sharing my journey as a witch, right, as a new practitioner. And that journey, it began first with a YouTube channel, then I created Instagram. Right now, I am a little bit more active on Instagram, and it's just taking photos and, hey, look, I created this one, or look, these books that I'm reading. But that's me, AB, and my channel is AB Witch Journal. I am originally from Venezuela. I am a practitioner. I practice witchcraft. I do utilize tarot as my preferred divination method. And I think that that's how we had the opportunity to connect for the first time. I think that we met through the hashtag occulty, and it's been a great friendship since.
It's so, the internet is a wild and wonderful place, and I'm very glad that through all of that we kind of managed to stumble into each other, because you're a babe. So how do you identify? Do you have any labels that you like? It's totally fine if you don't have any that kind of fit you.
Yes, so I think that neurodivergent is the best label, right? I think that is a great umbrella term, and also not necessarily related to. I am pansexual, and typically, even though I feel comfortable with any pronoun, I do feel that the best that do fit with where I am right now in my journey is he/they, right? And when it comes to talk about my neurodivergency, I have anxiety, depression, ADHD as well. And as I was mentioning you earlier, I haven't received like an official diagnosis when it comes to talk about being in the spectrum, but sometimes everything seems to point at that.
And I think you can, I'm very pro self-diagnosis, certainly in terms of being on the spectrum, because having an official diagnosis can have some slightly tricky consequences. Like, there are lots of countries that I couldn't emigrate to because of my diagnosis and all of that kind of stuff. And, there's not like there's any kind of treatment that is gate kept by a formal diagnosis, really. So I suppose in some countries, there's like legal protections from being autistic or something, but, in terms of like reasonable adjustments at work and things, but it's a careful decision to make, I think, in terms of the positive, negative balance of a formal medical autism diagnosis, because there's a lot of stigma. So, like, if you feel like the shoe fits, and I would say, like, peer review wise, I see a lot of commonalities between the two of us. Certainly with Isha, our mutual friend, Isha the activist witch, I think peer review would say one of us. And so, it's if that feels like a comfortable thing for you, then I'm certainly not going to say, no, you're not allowed to call yourself autistic. Because a doctor didn't say you are, because it's a bit of a tricky one with the stigma and stuff.
It is.
So how do you feel like your neurodivergence kind of shapes your life? If that's not too massive a question to us.
Oh no, I mean, it's a great question, and I think that also looking back worse. That's why I think that I definitely feel that I might be on the spectrum, right? When it comes to talk about the depression and anxiety is diagnosed, right? And certainly something that I've been treating for a good while. I used to have massive panic attacks and everything exacerbated due to religion, which like fear of hell and all of that. And it's crazy. And maybe we can talk a little bit more about that later on. But when it comes to talk about the spectrum aspect, for example, I remember that I have a cousin, and he was officially diagnosed, right? And there were a pattern of behavior, ways to speak, language used, and it's hard to explain with words, but I typically utilize the example of when I was in classes in my classroom. For me, in my head, the social responsibilities or attitude versus what it was meant to be or the order given by the instructors clash. Why am I supposed not to ask question if an instructor is giving a class when I am encouraged to do so? But then if I do so, my classmates make fun of me or they feel that I am affecting them somehow. And that situation, even now, I look backwards and I am like, oh, I kind of understand now why they were bullying me. I'm not justifying it, but also at the same time, it still doesn't make sense. Like, I am in a classroom. I'm meant to ask questions. I'm meant to do homework. I want to learn, right? So I feel that aspect still permeates who I am. I see life in a way. I'm not going to pretend that main character energy, but if I am in a space to learn, I want to take advantage of learning. If I am in a space to have fun, I want to take advantage of have fun. And sometimes it's hard for me to come out of the box of I can learn and have fun at the same time, and like that operation or equation or that change of roles. I don't know how to express it. It can be hard sometimes, right? Which is funny because in witchcraft or in spirituality, it's one of the things that I have been enjoying a lot. Oh, I am doing something that does not make sense, but sometimes makes sense, but it doesn't make sense and it gives results. Why is it giving results if it doesn't make sense? I cannot see it. And yet it worked. So, yeah, it's a funny situation. I guess that those are the glasses that I use to walk through life.
Yeah, the curiosity and I don't know, I've always kind of struggled to put into words this thing where like I take things very seriously, but I also have like a huge sense of humor about things. Like I care deeply about kind of everything that I come into contact with, and that you strike me as the same in terms of if we've chosen to be learning a thing, we really want to learn the thing. If I've chosen to be hanging out with people, I really want to be hanging out with them. There's none of that kind of superficial layer of kind of just doing the thing because you sort of are supposed to. It's like, no, this is an active decision for me to be here. So why wouldn't I, jump in with both feet kind of thing? And I think we're quite similar in that with I think the way that you approach your like magical studies and things is just so, I feel so kind of seen with the way that you are just like, fucking yes, I'm going to study the shit out of this. Like, it's so good.
Yeah. In my head, it doesn't make sense. And I think that was one of the challenges that I had with witchcraft, and I still have, and with divination, right? When I started reading tarot, my first question was, okay, but who says that this card means this, right? And then the question evolved into, oh, everyone has a different meaning, but what was the original meaning? Because if someone created this, someone had an idea of why the Three of Coins mean this, right? And sometimes I sound a little bit snobby when I am talking with my tarot friends, because and this is the Libra in me, right? We both are air signs.
Yeah.
So I do think that we can chat about this, and I love to play a devil's advocate. But when it comes to talk about tarot, for example, I love my intuitive tarot readers, because I do agree. I do think that intuition is something that we, people that utilize divination tools, we need to be attuned in. But I'm a firm believer that also intuition is built on intellect and memorization and the understanding of symbols, right? The more you understand a symbol, the more meanings a symbol can be attributed, the more elements your intuition can grab on to give you a message, right? So when I read tarot, yes, I like to utilize my intuition, but also I like to have as many symbols in my repertoire just for one card. So when I did my video on tarot, I recommended this book in particular, The Mystical Origins of Tarot, because it gives me like a different list of, okay, this is cool, or these people believe this on this card, and this one believe this on this. But also I am aware that just limiting the meanings on a card also limits the opportunity for you to receive even broader information. So is this pull and push back and forth? See how this brain?
Yeah.
I'm insane.
No, it's that it feels very like the two wolves of like ADHD and autism. So like the ADHD kind of ecosystem of this constant. And I mean, it's exhausting. Like, no wonder we're always so tired and we need caffeine.
It is exhausting.
But this push pull of like, but systems, but spontaneity, but but routine, but instinct and intuition, and but patterns, and it's this push pull thing, which is really magical, and it's absolutely kind of in that middle bit. I think is where magic really kind of comes alive. But it's because I don't think that like one is more magical than the other. It's kind of that sweet spot in between, but it is also exhausting. And like, this is why we're mad. It's because we have this thing all the time. Did you come to tarot first, or your kind of understanding of your neurodivergence?
Oh, that is a lovely question. So I will respond with I did know of my neurodivergence since I was 17-ish, 17, 18. But the first time that I had experience with divination through cartomancy, not necessarily tarot, but it was Spanish cards, baraja española. It was when I was around 7 or 8 with my great aunt. She used to read Spanish cards, and she was trying to teach me. My mom didn't let her because, Christian environment and all of that. And it's something that I still grieve, because I wish I look backward and I would have loved to start my witchcraft path since I was a kid. But tarot, per se, it was after. I knew about my neurodivergence first, but my first experience with divination through cartomancy was divination through cards.
Mm-hmm.
It was when I was 7 or 8, which back then, yeah, I didn't know about my neurodivergence yet. So, yeah.
That's so interesting. Like, does your kind of like childhood memory of those cards impact your tarot at all? Like, or did you never really get enough of an insight into it?
Well, I do have to say that I've always been witch inclined. If you ask me what I believe in, I am a firm believer that I was a witch before anything else, right? Um, what now? Does witch fits the word? Does the witch word fits with the pop culture ideal of what witchcraft is now? Mm, I don't know. I've always was very spiritual, very inclined towards religion, very inclined towards the occult, which I do think the religion sometimes does incline towards the occult. And when I was a kid, I was very, very interested into learning what my great aunt did, right? Did I say originally great aunt? I think that I did. If I didn't, okay,
I
okay.
think so.
My grandma's sister,
Right.
she was my aunt, right? And she used to do her readings, and I was so impacted by that. She didn't never let everyone like do it. She was not like in the middle of the living room and the kids running amok. She always was like in the kitchen or in the bedroom. I think that she also read coffee. I think that she also knew how to read coffee, but I'm not fully sure. I think that she did. But seeing her, I don't know why that always click on my head like, oh, she can see the future. Oh, she knows something, right? And I wanted to be like her, but I always was inclined to fantasy and magic since I was a kid. It's something that I feel that is always being very connected with me. Now, I do not remember. She only tried to teach me once and it never happened again. And because my mom did not allow it. And I admit that I do not remember what she taught me. Um, I actually do not utilize Spanish cards to read anymore. Um, so yeah, it's something that I'm very sad about. I guess that I did answer your question.
Yeah, you absolutely did. And like, I appreciate you sharing that because that kind of grief is significant. But I love the idea of like baby you always being a bit witchy, always finding the magic in everything. That makes a lot of
Yeah.
sense. It's really gorgeous. So how did you come to tarot in the end then when you were a teenager? Oh, sorry,
Well,
no, when you were
actually,
older. Sorry.
yeah, no, it actually was when I was here in USA. When I left Venezuela, I left very anxious, very depressed. In addition to my neurodivergency, I also have something that is called Meniere disease, and it causes me difficulty to hear on one ear. It causes vertigo and dizziness, and those symptoms get exacerbated with anxiety. So when I'm
Okay.
having an anxiety flare, I'm also going to get symptoms on my body, and it's a lot. It's a lot. But I found tarot here when I arrived to USA. It was very interesting. Something came up to me. I will say it like that. I was kind of active at church when I arrived here because I was still trying to latch onto a sense of familiarity and comfort. Church was not necessarily the best space for me when I was younger or was in Venezuela, but I still was used to it. And arriving to a country where you do not speak the language, arriving to a country where you are alone, um, I wanted to have something that I was feeling comfortable with, and church was that. And I don't remember well what caused it. I think that I was exploring Amazon, and I found a tarot deck ad, and I was still very nervous and scared, and I was like, fuck it, let's get it.
Yeah.
My mom is not here. I live alone. Even though I'm Christian, I don't know what Christianity means to me anymore. I am not um, controversial opinion. I am not fan of religion. I don't think that religion is necessarily something that is negative. I think that more negative is the fandom and the fanatic and the aspect of, pouring religion down someone else's throat. I think that religion is a great space for you to make friends and not to feel alone. I think that in the social aspect that does wonders. It will be great if it also were like a nice environment for LGBT people, right? Oh my God. Anyways, I'm sure that there are there are religious congregations out there
Yeah,
that
we've
are,
definitely got a few massive queer
right.
churches in Scotland.
And here too in Orlando, it's just simply, it's not for me anymore.
Yeah, no, fair.
That's pretty much it. But it was a really nice space for me to not necessarily feel alone, and people that spoke Spanish as well and taught me English. But I digress. I was on Amazon. I saw the ad. I say, fuck it. I got it. And I was, ironically, the first card that I pulled was the devil.
Excellent.
And I was just coming out of church, and it was like,
Of course, what else would
of
it
course
be?
it was. It was going to be or the devil or death, one of those
Yeah,
two.
something to
And it
really
was,
like make you sure that you'd picked up like some cursed object. Yeah, 100%.
yeah. And it shook me to my core. And I admit that after 3 days, I got rid of the deck. I think that I throw it away or I gave it to no, I think that I throw it away. But that already opened the door.
Yeah.
1 week after throwing it away, I got a new deck, and that deck I kept, and I kept my decks since. And it was a cool adventure, still is. I don't know, I feel that religion left me stagnant. With magic, there's always a new topic to learn, something new to happen, a new religion to explore, a new mythology to learn about. And I think that that's where religion fails. As soon as someone tells you this is your dogma, that's when you just turn around and leave. There's so much to explore, and tarot actually was a catalyst for me to dive onto witchcraft, and not vice versa.
Yeah, I think that's quite a usual. It's a bit of a gateway in that way for a lot of people. I think is that you have, even people that start using tarot as a purely psychological tool, personal development, just kind of taking a little bit of personal reflection. But then I think for a lot of people, if they are going to kind of go down the spiritual path, like tarot does the spooky thing a couple of times, then you go, wait, hang on. And then that's just the door opening, and now it's like, oh, you're a witch now. Sorry. Here's your witch card. Like, this is your life now. But it's, I think that's a thing that a lot of people experience, and I think it's really lovely. And there are plenty of secular and non-spiritual and non-witchy tarot readers out there, and all power to them. I like this little kind of foot in each camp group of, we respect science and psychology and think that it's fascinating, but also we accept that there are a lot of things we don't know, and that's where I thrive. It's always that like that middle bit between the two things that I love. Do you think that your neurodivergence affects your tarot practice and like how you approach tarot?
Absolutely. So this is, and of course, don't make a Bible out of my comments. This is where I am. This is where my opinion is, right? There is, I don't remember well the name, but between literature and fantasy world, there is like a series of laws. I don't remember well the name of that law, but there is a particular law that says that once that magic is well enough explained, practically becomes science. So this is just for me to elaborate on the fact that there is again, my belief system, of course. There is a line that any type of practitioner threads on, whether this is completely scientific, right? and or not. If there's no way for us to connect with any type of spirits or see beyond, then this is just the cards are just a reflection, or we just reflects on the cards like certain maybe elements or situations that might be going through our mind, and these symbols just give us clarity to explore them, right? Which I do think that this is a reality many people do not necessarily believe on. They do not partake of an animistic approach. They just utilize these symbols to explore their psyche, which is a 100% valid way to do so. And there's other people that do partake of the animistic aspect, and I kind of partake of both. I feel that since I was a kid, and I do feel that that also might be the neurodivergence element. But being depressed and being prone to bullying, it was a lot of situations. So being depressed, being anxious, I was really good at reading those micro cues and being attentive of what can I do so the bottle doesn't explode. So, and also being in a school where I was being actively bullied. I had to read those cues and being aware of, well, it's time for me to go. It's time for me to stay close to the teacher. It's time for me to stay with my friends. It's time for me not to say this or to say that. And obviously there is which I firmly believe, I do think that there is the spiritual aspect as well, where maybe it was a combination of, remember when I say that intuition latch onto your intellect, and your intuition utilizes memories and symbols and understanding of definitions and maybe meanings that you already have digested, right? Same was I do think that intellect also works in that way in real life. The intuition aspect. There were moments that I was like, I should not go through this place, or I should not do this, I should not do that. Those gut feelings, right? Maybe we are just utilizing witchcraft to balance that power that maybe we didn't have or we are looking to have. And same when we see, historically speaking, the relation of witches living in the borders of society, typically poor, typically excluded, and how they use that power in order for them to protect themselves, for those that were on power, right? It was like a not necessarily left versus right, and I'm actually sharing this from Sarah Master that she reposted it on Facebook. It's not necessarily about left and right, it's more about top versus bottom and vice versa type of thing. So I went on to this ramble, like to try to give the context of what I believe in. I do think that neurodivergence is a combination of factors, right? And also my practice is the result of a combination of factors, experience, neurodivergency, spiritual elements. And I do think that for us neurodivergent, we can see certain elements and certain cues that maybe a person that is not neurodivergent may not notice it, right? Also, people that has gone through trauma, they can notice certain elements that people that are not in survival mode.
Yeah, 100%.
Can
And
notice,
that's
right?
exactly what I was thinking when you were talking about it, because I think PTSD and like complex PTSD fall under the neurodivergent umbrella for people that want to claim it. And I think that exactly what you were talking about, the pattern seeking and the subtleties of effectively like what we now as kind of like practitioners and adults consider sort of, like energies and stuff, but you don't have the words for that as a child. You're just like, oh, I know not to say something right now, or I know that I need to leave, or I need to go and do something else, or those subtleties that you pick up on. I think that's so interesting that I don't think I've ever made the connection between that and tarot. But I was talking the last time I did a witchy market, I was talking to a palm reader, and she was talking about how the difference between someone who just reads, well, she's also a tarot reader, the difference between someone who reads just for themselves and someone who reads for other people, particularly professionally, isn't really in your ability to read the cards, it's in your ability to read people. And so I think like yeah, if you've had experiences in your life where you've had to really tune yourself in to this, and people will say that autistic people don't have social skills and can't pick up on social cues, and you're just like, well, this is where we have the whole spiky cognitive profile. All autistic people are different, because a lot of the autistic people I know are so like hyper attuned to these things. And so that's so interesting to think of that through the lens of tarot, and think that that's part of what we're responding to, and part of the skill set that we're bringing into our tarot practice is something born out of trauma, effectively, is this hypervigilance and the ability to sense, even without really engaging it in our brains. So not going, I have witnessed this thing, therefore I'm going to, it's just, whoop,
Yeah.
not going to
Yeah.
do that. And yeah, that's such a, I've not thought about that before, but I feel that in a big way.
I mean, obviously, I'm coming from, this is the response coming from my own experience.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
And maybe some other people have, maybe some other readers have had other experiences, right? For example, a person that might have been trained by their grandma, their great aunt, right? For maybe they understand tarot from that approach, master, teacher student type of thing. I do feel that also pattern repetition is such a big factor in I do feel that again, my own experience, we can see those small elements repeating on a certain circumstances. I always like to use the example of the Tree of Sword, right? The Tree of Sword is such a complex card, and I am not going to dismiss anyone's opinion or view on that. Maybe they are receiving that at the moment to read it. I remember a particular time that I was watching a video and someone was saying, well, the Tree of Sword is a card of grief and pain, but that a positive way to read it is that you are going to go through this, but you are going to come out anew. But in my experience, every single time that I pull the Tree of Swords, oh darling, you are being cheated on. Like, this is a relationship that you should not continue in. And it's been 3 times. And the first time that it come out, I was like, oh, should I do the PG situation and tell them, well, I think that you're going to be, and they were not fine, and they were mad at me, like, Aníbal, you are not reading this well. And I was like, you know what, I should have told you, but I didn't, because I didn't want to hurt your feelings. And then at the second time and the third time, I was like, okay, this is a card that I have to be very careful reading, but I have to be truthful. And my first response every single time that someone comes at me and asks me, hey, how is my relationship going? If you were sure you were not asking, so something is happening, why don't we try to break that first, right? Let's try to dissect that. When you are sure how your relationship is going, you are not going to ask how it's going. So what is making you feel that you need to explore that part, right? And that's also the reason of why I'm not selling like my services. I want to, because hey, that will be great for money. I need that extra. Listen,
I'll be first in line. If you start selling tarot readings, I will be there with bells on.
No, but sometimes I admire people like you that offer those services for everyone. I try just to do it with closer friends and family, because the cards tend to read that they read hard and they read you well, and that's also why I do think that at the time for read to myself, if I want to do like, okay, an introspection, I will use the card, cool. But if I want someone to read my energy, I will make sure that someone else has read my fortune and not necessarily me reading it for myself, because I know that I'm going to be biased. And recently I actually had another issue. A friend of mine I will not elaborate, obviously, for respect of her privacy, but she was having a situationship, and I was not aware of that. And she asked me to pull the cards, and I was like, "Girl, not again." It was so fun, and we were laughing, but I didn't know, and it was in the cards, and this is the type of things on. I am a big fan of science, and I'm the first one, and you can ask to all my friends and maybe my teachers at a master's. I'm the first one that I'm going to try to self-dilute myself to. This is not logical. I need an order. I need a logic behind this. But when situations like this happen, there is a pattern. There is a card that is coming out often that indicates the situation. Why is that happening?
It is that thing of I had it today with the Five of Cups, where like you often get the kind of the book reading of, you know, kind of stop, like effectively like bitch stop crying, count your blessings kind of thing is sort of the book meaning. And I tend to not read it like that because I think that our culture, or my culture, is very quick to minimize grief and to tell people to get over shit and to just get, and I'm like, no, feel your feelings. That's my reading of it. But then today I pulled the card and I was just like, no, today is the book reading fits better. Like, it's actually like brush yourself off. It's actually time to get on with shit. And it's that the intuition is the choosing. So you've got your personal views, which are, you know, my ones are to do with, you know, fuck toxic positivity and whatever. But you also have the knowledge of the book, and you also have the knowledge of every reading you've ever done where the Five of Cups has come up. You have the knowledge that comes from like every deck you have that has a different depiction of the thing. So the decks that I use for professional readings, I'm going to fucking butcher this, but it's the La Llorona.
La Llorona,
Yes,
Llorona.
thank you. Mm-hmm.
No, that's perfect. I did understand that. It's all good.
But yeah, so it's a really, and like in another deck, it's a banshee. It's like, it's really wailing, and I'm always like, feel the feelings. The card is saying you can't go through it. You've got to feel the things. And then today I was like, no, today it's pick yourself up, get on with it. But that's the intuition. The intuition is choosing. And so for you, it's like the Three of Swords is heartbreak, and he's cheating on you, and it's all terrible and horrific. And you kind of go, how often is that going to be relevant? And then you do the readings, and you go, oh, actually, in this instance, maybe this is the thing. And, you know, I'm sure there are plenty of kind of positive washed ways to read the Three of Swords, and I often read it as like a self-sacrifice kind of hurting yourself in pursuit of things kind of. But in your instance, it's the intuition is choosing, no, this is the drama. This is the biggie. And that's actually the skill.
I allow me to add, because I do want to, now that you mentioned that, I do want to elaborate. Yes, in my experience, that the way that I see divination, right? And this is, again, I'm circling back onto my own personal experience and point of view. The way that I see divination is that if we choose to connect with someone or something, divination is the language that we utilize to connect with that cannot speak. Whether it's the universe, whether it's the time, whether it's a deity or speak or a spirit. And it's not that they cannot speak. Obviously they speak. Maybe they cannot speak in our language or in a way that is easy for us to hear. Ergo, we need to utilize a tool that translates that thought. And we are the translators, right? That's also why I really love Hermes, the deity Hermes, or Mercury in the Roman mythology. But anyways, I really connect a lot with Hermes because I love these deities attributed to knowledge and, well, more specifically, language and translation. And it's something that I love as well because my first language was Spanish and I learned English here, right? So, but I thank you for elaborating on that. Even though in my experience, when we in relationship readings, we pull the trio Swords, because the way that I play around with tarot in my deck, in my head, is that the question is the one that will establish a different side of meanings.
Yeah.
And obviously we have to, well, you are a tarot reader. I'm just elaborating here for the sake of the video, right? But
That's lovely.
I do take in consideration the entire reading. Yes, one card is always important, but it's the symphony, the melody, the entire structure of the reading, right? So there are instances, of course, that the Three of Swords are not necessarily negative. However,
it's quite hard to spin it positively.
it's a card that is challenging. I want to give a shout out. Enter Moonlight Instagram. I think that I recently saw a post where they give a very easy way to read like the numbers of the cards, like the scales, and it was so cool for me to see, because it's such an easier way for people that are just getting started with tarot, right, to have an idea of how to read that. But yeah, sorry for rambling again.
I love it.
I do fully agree with you. There in my experience with relationship related, specifically with the question, is he cheating on me? Is she cheating on me? Are we being loyal here in this relationship? And the Three of Swords come out, darling, no. That is the response, right?
Yeah, it's not looking
in other
good.
aspects, yeah, in other aspects, yeah, but that card is more, I see that it's more related to the pain aspect. If I pull different cards, but that is not a good. In the pattern repetition aspect, that card always comes up. Get ready for the heartbreak. Yeah.
And that's kind of the skill of the reader, isn't it? That you've identified that pattern in your readings as kind of different people feel differently about the divinatory properties of tarot, but in your experience, this is how things are going to go. And so I have similar, there are cards that I've read for because it's a difficult thing with professional readings, is that you don't know how it turns out, and I hate that. I'm so nosy. But if you read for people in your life and then you see how it goes, you're like, oh, that's what that meant. Gotcha. And then you remember that for next time. And yeah, so there are some cards, particularly in my oldest deck, where it's they have sort of separate divinatory meanings to me because I've seen it happen. And so yeah, those connections and that kind of weird memory thing of just, it's all logged back here somewhere. We've got this big library of all these things that have happened, and then linking them in with different cards and different readings and stuff. But I think that's absolutely the skill of the reader, is that intuition and the going, that's it. That's the thing. Do you feel like you found any challenges in relating to tarot and collective archetypes because of your neurodivergence? So are there any cards that maybe don't make, I suppose this is maybe thinking back to when you were learning, were there any cards that didn't make sense to you because of your experience?
That's actually a great question. I don't necessarily think that is, well, maybe yes, due to the core cards in particular, I find them difficult, right? And I think that it's an overall feeling across boards, or maybe this is I feel that the core cards can be challenging, and it's not necessarily because they don't have a meaning attributed to them, right? It's because it depends on a cool interpretation. Some people give to the core cards attribution to the zodiac signs. Some others like to give them what is the name of these scale? Myers.
Myers-Briggs types.
Myers-Briggs types. So some other people like to give them attribution in related to the elements. Like for example, the queens are water, the kings are earth. the
Oh yeah, people
nights
disagree
are
about that
air.
all the time.
Yeah, that they do those meaning situations, and it kind of makes sense maybe for them, but for me it's challenging to give just one set archetype to one core card. For me it's difficult to say that, oh, first of all, what's gender? Let's begin there. So
Oh,
it's already a whole thing for me when we say, oh well, the Queen of Cups, it's motherly. The fuck does that mean? Oh, she's sensitive. What is that? But the King of Cups. Oh well, he is sensitive and poetic.
what's the
That doesn't
difference
ring
then?
that doesn't ring any bell. Now, if we are talking about qualities, and that's also why I like this book a lot, because it
Oh,
cleared like a lot of, more than trying to give a hint of, um, more than give them a description or a descriptive quality, is more like an action or maybe a situation to come. I find that match a little bit better with me, and of course I'm not dismissing anyone that want to read it in a gender way. Now that I'm reading a little bit more about the Chinese elements, and I'm reading the books from Venerable Wen. Oh well, I share the Holistic Tarot.
oh
I love
yeah,
this book.
what a tome.
The way that they describe polarity.
Mm,
Yes, of course, we talk about masculine and feminine, but not in a gender way. It's more in a polarity
yeah.
aspect, in a push and pull, cold and hot, and everything in between, right? And I'm more attracted to the idea of polarity as a factual, of points, and how you thread to those points, instead of saying that things are male or female, which, you know where I'm trying to go
Oh
with
yeah.
this. I
Oh,
just find it bothersome. I find but it is a really complicated thing for me to read the core cards, due to the gender element, and obviously to the archetype aspect. In my head, it's difficult to read those meanings, or I have to be at peace with the fact that each chord card has a gender assigned
mm.
or a meaning assigned, or I try to find the pattern repetition. And the pattern repetition with the chord cards have been challenging, because I haven't met the first person in my life that is just poetic,
Oh
that is
yeah.
just sensitive, that is just, oh well, they just like money. And I've met great friends, terrible sons. I've met wonderful boyfriends, terrible friends. I've met people that are both artistic and like money, and people that are, you know, we are so many things. And the archetype, the definite aspect in narrating is what I get challenged with. It's easier for me to read an action or a situation, but when we try to read a person,
Mm.
it's hard. I don't see people as just one thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like there are some people who read the chords not even just as the gender of the picture, but like then start assigning like physical attributes. And I'm like, what? Because also like if you read the the weight book for the RWS book, it's like, okay, so this only works if the people you're coming into contact with are, I think, exclusively white, exclusively like able-bodied, heterosexual, like, of a certain class. Like it's, that, and so it's just like, so in 2025, how relevant is that to anyone's life? And so yeah, I agree on the sort of, I tend to think of them, I suppose, as facets of a person rather than like an individual, because what a bizarre world we would live in if you could really group people into like 16 categories. And I'm here
Yeah.
enjoying astrology, but. that's
I mean,
different.
I do think also, and again, notice that this is me going back and forth fighting with saying, well, this is my statement, but you know what? Let me
Oh,
make an addendum. I also do think that it's important and it's necessary. Magic will evolve across time. Our understanding of our belief system will evolve across time because, as you said earlier, moments ago, the reading that might have be done 2 centuries ago when the Rider-Waite deck was created, it's impossible to fit now. They never imagined that so many cultures will be merging in the way that they did as of now, right? So I see it. I see it. I do think that there are elements that need to change, and obviously there are elements that need to adapt and embrace science. And growth, but I also do think that by that changing, there's going to be an inherent. I'm not going to say drop of quality, but there is an element that it's being forgotten that might be quintessential for an accurate rating or an accurate spell, right? Um, I, I'm not saying that the results now are not the same as before, but they're not the same.
yeah.
I just think that it is important to keep in mind that, but I fully agree with you. Yeah. I actually wanted to ask you because I know that you have asked me in regards my view with tarot, especially through my, let's say, the lenses of my neurodivergence. But how do you see it? What are your lenses? How do you see the tarot through your own point of view, I guess, and neurodivergence?
So I started reading quite young, and it was a long time before my diagnosis, and so like I I started reading at a time where I think my mind was very, it was a huge storm was going on in my head. Like my life had sort of fallen apart, and this was like this really interesting thing that brought a bit of like structure. And like so like the deck that I learned on is, it's a weird deck like made by a man who started a cult. It's a whole thing, but like it was, it was my deck that I had, and I was given it by someone who I really trusted, both as kind of like an intuitive and wise person, but also as someone very kind of rigorously scientific. And it was my first inkling that those two things could kind of be in the same person, and that someone, that was open to the idea of there being more than just kind of academic wisdom was a thing. And so because it's been such a part of my life for such a long time, it's quite hard for me to really unpick it from everything else, because like I was reading for like teenage problems, like I predicted friends like losing their virginity and like all of this kind of like teenage stuff, and like without really thinking about it, and without kind of going, oh fuck me, I predicted the future, and without really thinking about like the weight of that effectively of what was happening. And it happened so many times that it was just kind of a known thing amongst my friends, that it was just like, oh, like I was always a bit weird, but then it was just like, oh, Imogen's like the really sciencey one, but you get her with a tarot deck and like she'll tell you. And like it never occurred to me what was actually happening. And so I then took that into my adult life and studying tarot as a more kind of academic thing, and like learning how other people see tarot. So the very spiritual, the very psychological, the kind of mixing of the two, the people who use it to channel ancestors and deity and the universe, and people who poo-poo all of that, and people who use it in like therapeutic contexts, and me just being like somewhere in the middle, being like, I don't know, it does this weird thing sometimes. Like, I just kind of talk to the cards, and maybe it's confirmation bias. Maybe it's that I know a situation, but then also it had predicted things that I never could have predicted, actually. Like, there were no pieces that I could kind of reverse engineer as being like, oh, well, I could have thought that that could have happened because I knew these pieces. And so because that had all kind of happened before I really sat down to think about what do I believe, nailing my colours to a mast of psychology, spiritualism, occultism, deity, ancestors, like all of these things, because I was so young and I didn't have any vocabulary for any of it. I think I still don't have an answer, but that feels okay to me, because it's just, tarot is to me what it has always been, which is kind of a friend. So it's a bit of a shit answer, but like,
No,
like, I don't know.
it's a perfect answer, because you are showcasing, or at least you're expressing your own experience. Because that's also the thing. When I get snobby with my own views of tarot, and obviously I say snobby in a quirky, fun way, but I know that it can sometimes be read across the board like you're being an asshole. Because it can be, and I wish that I could control how people perceive me, but it can't be. I am not going to say to someone, oh, you need to read tarot like me, because in their experience it has worked. But on my end, what has worked is, yeah, I've read quite a few books, and so far the only ones that I recommend are these two, because I feel that those are the ones that have worked for me. Because how can I say this? My experience with divination in this country has been very blessed, in the sense of the divination here has always been like, hey, is there a chance for me to get pregnant if I go out this weekend with this person? Or is this, where am I with this situation? Or are they cheating on me, right? There has not been yet a reading of, am I going to die? Am I going to be in danger, right? Because those can be found across the board. And being an immigrant and experience situations that have happened to me in South America that maybe are quite uncommon here in the North. I have experienced things as a person from another culture and space, and maybe a country that has somewhat been poor, and I have experienced challenges in life that not too many people in this section of the world may experience, right? So when I see, and I think that I have already spoken about this when we went, for example, with Ivy in Ivy's channel. Shout out to Ivy, I love her so much. The spirituality here is perceived as, or something that I want to do because I like, or because I have the opportunity to, or is trendy, or is comfortable, or is a safe space. And in South America, at least in my country, is what we have. Sometimes it's the way that we heal. Sometimes it's the way that we protect. Sometimes it's the way that I didn't understand it then, because I was involved in the Christian church. I was surviving in the way that I could, right? But I remember clearly a classmate once, she told me, hey, well, I was dying and my mom saved me through a ritual that they did. They were practicing Santeria, and I think that they had to kill an animal. I don't know what it was. She didn't explain it because she was sick, and her mom did not elaborate much on that. But it's not a lifestyle. It's not a vibe. It's magic to survive, to exist, to live, to protect, right? And same with divination. Divination can be the last retort for someone that is at the border of depression or anxiety or suicide or hopelessness, right? And the way that I see divination is that sometimes We have the tool to change someone's life for the good or for the bad. And it is a responsibility, right? So my moral and my ethic at the time to read has to be very, very careful. It has to be very, very well aligned. Is this truth that I'm seeing on a piece of paper, whatever truth may means for anyone, is this going to throw someone is going to break the camel's back? Is going to be the feather that breaks the camel's back, or is going to be the gateway for change and good to the person that is asking to be read, right? I haven't experienced a situation of life on death, of the on divination, and I try to tread carefully, right? Whether it's real or it's not, whatever real may means. When we read for someone, we're having someone that is pouring down their feelings and opening their heart. And when I see people that take advantage of that opportunity to take money out of someone, or they are not being truthful, it's something that we need to be careful with, right? Because we can be toying with someone else's salvation or pretty much fall.
And I'm always grateful that you bring it up, because it's, you know, it's not my lived experience. All of that got wiped out of Scotland by my people, you know, hundreds of years ago, and so that's no longer a thing on these isles particularly, or if it is, it's been like clawed back by people who will fucking fight you if you try and take it from them. And like, I respect that, but it's not in my lived experience, and so I really appreciate you whenever you bring that up, because it's something that we all need to remember.
I do think that there is something. It is a complicated topic, because if you ask me what you believe in, I will also be weirded about it. And the thing is that I don't see tarot as just a psychological tool. I think that it can be used as a psychological tool. And I think I don't only think, I know that it can be used as a psychological tool, but I have experienced that I have found very, it's the timing, right? We might not understand everything. And I guess that this is my brain trying to make sense out of what doesn't make sense. But it also happens with tarot, with divination. Sometimes things do not make sense, yet they work. Sometimes these papers that we have at hand, we throw them in a way, and the pattern says a response, and the response the pattern repetition keep occurring, right? If there's a reason of why we practice it, whether it's real or not, at this point I worry less about reality, and I worry more about practicality. And this tool has been useful. It's been useful for many people to keep themselves sane, to make a prognostic of situations in their life, for others to work, to provide support. It's being a tool of good, and it's being a tool also for others to do bad things. And if anything, I can encourage anyone that is listening to this conversation is that if you partake of this, try to get your moral and ethics, ramped up, and do good with what you have at hand, and provide support that those might need, that support from you, right? But there is a reason of why there's so many people that do utilize this tool as a way to do things. And I think that is powerful.
I think that's such a good point for people to check in with their moral and ethical kind of values with these things.
I want to say thank you. You were amazing, and your questions definitely make me think so much. And I was so excited to participate of this. So.
I mean, it's lovely. Like, really, truly, like, you're so interesting, and like, I think we do operate on a very similar level, but what's interesting, I suppose, is that our lived experiences are so different, and so we're kind of operating on the same system but coming from different perspectives, and so we're like meeting in the middle, and it's all like, yeah, interesting.
Yes.
Yeah, it's cool, and I'd really like, the point about like responsibility and ethics and stuff, and even like you say, even if it's all in our heads, still operating under the assumption that we're moving with, I know it's a word that gets kind of overused in the magical space, but like thinking about our intentions and what are we aiming for. So even if the magic isn't real or whatever, tarot isn't, well, I mean, tarot is real because it's like a physical, but you know, that if that's not real, but the interactions that we have with people and the way that we move through the world, that's important. And I think that we share very similar values in that regard. Yeah. And I think that's really valuable.
Yeah.
Because you don't meet people all the time that have shared values, not in the real world. And I think that that's where the internet is, you know, obviously a terrifying place, but it's also a beautiful place because geographically we may not be clustered of people that kind of believe the same things that we believe, but online we manage to find each other. And I think that that's, I mean, what a time to be alive. The world is on fire, but at least we have each other.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess that I will finish. I will close this like by saying just two last things. One, I'm going to quote Mortellus, they them, incredible author of the book. The Bones Fall in a Spiral. I recommend it to everyone.
And they've got a new one coming out soon, I think. Maybe next year.
Yes, that's correct. It's related to necrobotany.
Yeah, botany. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, so good. And I had the opportunity to interview Mortellus on my channel.
Amazing.
They're amazing. And it's funny, they mentioned something in regards to intention. They are not a big fan of the intention.
No, I remember.
Witchcraft. Yeah, and they pull my ears, rightfully so. I did agree with everything that they say from the very beginning, but like they made the addendum like public, and I do think that intentions in confirmation and in agreeing with Martellus, intentions are great, but at the end of the day, what matters is what you do, right? Yes. And there are great what is the word? The path to hell is paved with good intentions, and I think that is important to take in consideration, right? We as practitioners and diviners, and that's also what takes latching onto what I said earlier. I might have a good intention lying to someone that is asking me, oh, well, am I good in cheating on? But if the card says yes, are you being truthful is going to push you out of a rail, or is going to put you on the right place, right? And also, I think that's great when some tarot readers make very clear, hey, I'm not reading about relationships, nor money, nor jobs, and bless when they do that.
What else is there? Just asking, in terms of the things that people have questions about, what else is there?
Yeah, I mean, I that's also the thing. When they do that, most people come to you for money, for love, or for all of that. So I don't know. I really don't know. But bless their souls. Yeah. I typically read for my friends and family, and they ask me also crazy stuff to the point that I'm like, why are you telling me so much? But anyway, that was the first thing that I wanted to say in regards, the intention aspect. And the second one is more related to something that I learned from Sarah Mastros, whom I also love. Sarah is very emphatic on ethics and morals, and sometimes that clash, right? We might have different point of view of things, but even as diviners, right, we again latching on the responsibility aspect. The first time that Sarah in her lesson, 30 lessons of practical witchcraft, when they teach about Malefica, the first thing that we receive is an hour of ethics in witchcraft, and which I love. I think that Malefica is necessary and is a responsibility, especially when there is a lack of power in, she says that we have the responsibility to hex politicians that are not behaving properly. Well, different words, don't quote me on that, but
Oh,
pretty
I
much
will.
she does say so, and thank you, and she says so, and she do so. But more importantly is that just because we have the power and the ability to do something doesn't necessarily mean that we have to.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I don't want to put myself on a pedestal because I'm just a chill guy. I try to do witchcraft and try to push forward. But if we are playing with major energies here, we have a responsibility for those that are not playing with those major energies. And I'm very grateful that I had the opportunity to meet you. I had the opportunity to meet Isha. I had the opportunity to meet all these people online. These are weird times to live in. We are connecting with people in a way that our ancestors were not even thinking about. And that also puts on a place very magical. If you ask our ancestors 200 years ago, hey, I'm talking with someone through a mirror,
Yeah.
they will be like, oh, demons, genies, whatever. And I'm like, no,
Absolutely.
it's internet. Oh, what is internet, right? So
Yeah.
again, the distinction of science and magic, maybe in 500 years, what we do is going to be scientifically explained. And were we crazy? Were we magical? I don't care. The thing is that we have to do the best we can with what we have right now. And that's it.
I think I completely agree. And I think that is where it's quite easy to reconcile the scientific and the spiritual, is that you kind of, if you just believe that they're sort of two sides of the same coin and they're not opposites. I mean, that's really mixing my metaphors. They're basically the same thing. Magic is just, what was it? Magic is science we don't understand yet.
Most likely, yes.
And it's like, exactly like you say, we're across time zones, we're across a vast ocean, and we're here chatting about magic. What is more magic than that?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I think it's brilliant. This has been a real treat. Thank you so much for watching or listening. Thank you so much to AB for being such a fabulous person and wonderful guest. I hope you're taking really good care of yourself, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye.